Every year, Americans celebrate the birth of Lord Baby Jesus with the sacred holiday of Christmas, a time of giving, of caring, of kindness and love. Some folks make contributions to their favorite charities. Others stuff a few bucks in the red kettle of their local Salvation Army. And of course, most of us buy gifts for friends and loved ones. That's really what the holiday is about, getting together with loved ones. Maybe snuggling up with a big mug of eggnog in front of a crackling fire in a house decked out in wreaths, blinking lights, candy canes, a nativity, maybe even a mistletoe or two. Did Dad go overboard with the decorations again, or what? He can be such a Griswold. Let's just hope he dons that suit and reads us some soul-warming stories. Hark! Do you hear it? The sound of reindeer hooves on the roof. Carolers at the door. It's hard to make out over the excited chatter of our guests. Everyone's so excited for the big day, ready to rip into presents as the buttery tones of Bing Crosby issue from the hi-fi, and the smell of lovingly baked pies and cookies fills the air. Ah, yes, Christmas. Who's that? Is that Dad? It's a bit early to be dressed as Santa, isn't it? What's he doing with that chainsaw? No! No! No!
Is this a metal thing?
Yes. Taste.
David, what is this?
Pretty thick.
Break.
I have to kill a lot of people. Just tell me what you want me to fuck.
I have big tits and a tiny vagina.
Oil me up, Daddy.
I can't believe that Bryce prefers big tits. Mistletoe alert. This is backcountry.
This guy was a real jerk.
How long can Hugo be pregnant?
Chomp, 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 chomp.
Oh, you're such a dick, David.
Okay, everybody, put on your corpse handling gloves.
Ew.
Hoodie Picasso.
Hello, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Horror Movie Talk. I'm Carl Swan from Terror Detective, and with me this week is the beautiful, the wonderful, the incredibly sexy, and always entertaining Bryce Hanson. That's right, folks. We're
Flattery
back.
will get you everywhere, Carl.
Well, I mean every word of it. Bryce is still auditioning new co-hosts. I'm but one of them. But the good news is that the show is going back to their roots and reviewing, believe it or not, horror movies. New theatrical releases always get priority, and they also review older horror movies, both good and horrible. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Full video available on YouTube. Don't be a square. Make sure to share. Also, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/horror movie talk, the equivalent of the adult section at your video rental store. If you want to add your P to the community pool, go to horrormovietalk.com or call 682-253-4468 and leave us a voicemail. We'd love to hear from you. We've got a great show today. We will be reviewing Christmas, Bloody Christmas. And boy, is it bloody. We'll start out giving a brief review. Maybe not so brief, because I have a tendency to talk a lot. And our score for the movie. We score on a scale of 1 to 10. After we give our score, we'll get into spoilers and take a deeper dive into what we liked and loathed about the film. Later, we will not be playing another game, and yeah.
Later, we will end the show.
Christmas, Bloody Christmas can be found on Shudder, AMC Plus, Prime, and all the other usual places where movies get rented. Christmas, Bloody Christmas pits off-brand lead character Tori, played by Riley Dandy, against a malfunctioning homicidal robot Santa, manufactured by Uncle Sam. Tori runs a shop next door to a toy store with one of the killer Kris Kringles, and mayhem ensues. That's the summary, folks. That's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
And I like that. Well, all right. So getting into my review, this flick takes the concept of intelligent tech, a concept popularized by 80s slashics like Maximum Overdrive, Deadly Friend, Chopping Mall, RoboCop, and Terminator, and Frankensteins it onto another favorite 80s concept, the Killer Santa. Of course, the gold standard for Killer Santas was set by Charles Sellier's Silent Night, Deadly Night in 1984. But that doesn't stop modern directors from trying to put their own special spin on the axe-wielding punisher of naughty boys and girls. Last year alone, we got 3 new entries in the category: Violent Night, The Mean One, and Joe Begos's Christmas Bloody Christmas. I can easily say that Begos's option is my favorite, not because it's a perfect film. The top half is talk-heavy, the lead character is somewhat annoying, and with Begos aiming for a Rob Zombie aesthetic, lots of neon light and oversaturated primary colors, much of the action is muddy and hard to discern, which is a bummer, because there's some pretty good gore in this thing. Heads get stomped, split down the middle, eyes get poked out with the ass end of Santa's axe, and multiple cops get shotgunned in the facial. This grindhouse gruesomeness isn't helped by the cinematography, but I still appreciate that Begos shot the film in 16mm, and he also included plenty of gore for his core audience. There's also lots of references to iconic horror properties, and I like the cast. Riley Dandy delivers an effective final girl with Tori, the smart-mouthed and strong-minded record store owner caught in the middle of Robo-Santa apocalypse, with a bunch of dim-witted men who refuse to listen to her. The exception is Robbie, played by Sam Delick, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, her equally saucy and opinionated employee whose Xmas wish, though unstated, is to get into Tori's panties. He gets his wish and lasts longer than any of the other dudes because he actually listens to her. And that's largely what this movie is about. But also, it's a mindless blood and guts movie about a killer Santa that slices and dices without rhyme or reason. If taken with a big heaping boulder of salt, it can be plenty of fun.
Yeah, this movie, like, it won me over in the end. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of the first act, and mostly because, like, yeah, like you said, it's kind of got that Rob Zombie aesthetic of, like, we've got a certain type, you know, of people that are, you know, they're not the brightest. They use the F word as the de facto word in every sentence.
Yeah.
And it's one of those where, like, I just got tired of them talking. I'm like,
Yeah.
could you just shut the fuck up? Please, just, like, they're the type of people that I wouldn't really enjoy hanging around just because they would be too uncomfortable with silence.
Yeah.
And not themselves talking. But they're super believable. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Whether I'm annoyed with them or not, like, they are a type, and they were a strong type, and it was like they felt like real people. And they talked in a way that I'm not even sure, like, if it was actually scripted or not. Maybe you did research on it, but it felt like it could have been a lot of ad-libbing.
Yeah,
kind
totally.
of a curb kind of thing, because the dialogue felt very real.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's like Joe Begos talking, or maybe a friend of his, but I'm sure these are like the kind of people that he either hangs around with frequently or wants to be hanging around with frequently.
Right.
You can tell he really loves these characters.
Right, yeah. So very much like people that, you know, hang around tattoo shops, you know, or like bars
Or record
/
stores.
tattoo shops. Yeah, record stores. And like, this is where, like, my my assholeness comes out. I'm like, yes, I am judging people. Yes, I don't like some types of people.
Well,
just
I
'cause
think
they bother me.
I think that's like human, right? Like to
Right.
judge is human.
I'm only human, of flesh and blood I'm made.
Right. So there's that. But the biggest strength of the movie is its aesthetic, which it is very strong and is very consistent with, which is like very much like Creepshow lighting, the neon primary colors, like very much a lot of red and green. I mean, the poster, like the branding of it is very consistent from beginning to end.
Yeah.
As is the soundtrack, which I think is actually really great, and works for it. And then, like I said, by the end, it really wins me over because with that consistency and with like kind of the grindhouse elements of like being really gritty and being like kind of over the top gory at moments, like, yeah, they went for it, and they like, you know, they didn't pull any punches with those elements, to where like I can forgive them for being kind of annoying or a little
Yeah. The missteps are, you know, minimal, or rather they're acceptable. Right.
Right. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say like it's a must-see movie or even like a must-see Christmas horror movie, but it's good. It's
what it is. Like, I feel
Yeah.
that's why people who like it is because it's very simple, straightforward. You know what you're getting into. It doesn't try to be anything but what it is.
right. Yeah. So what score do you give it?
I mean, I think I would give it a 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm in line with that. I was thinking 6 out of 10 too, just because it's slightly better than average, but it gives you what you want, you know, in a like a serviceable way, you know.
I mean, to me, 6 isn't a bad score. Everything you just said, yeah.
Yeah, I mean 5 would have been like it gives you exactly what you want. I think the thing that gives it a 6 for me is like just the aesthetic. Like, I really loved the visuals, the gore, and I really loved like the kind of pulsing EDM music throughout that's kind of like mixed with, I don't even know what genre of metal it would be, but kind of like drone core kind of stuff.
Definitely drone. Yeah, that's it exactly.
So yeah, it's a strong aesthetic and really fun towards the end. Like the last act is actually a lot of fun to watch, and
Santa's
surprising
laser
in a lot of ways,
eyes
too. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, you're a fan of, you know, Terminator and RoboCop and etc.
Yeah. I mean, I like when movies go for it and like
Sense of humor. I mean, well, anyway, we don't need to go into the specifics of what the movie does. We'll do that momentarily, but yeah, if you're listening to these pesky commercials, you don't have to do that. You could just become a patron and support the show like you know you want to. So do it. What are you waiting for? You could also support the show by going to the Horror Movie Talk shop on the website, where there's plenty of delicious fashions waiting for you to buy them. Check out our resident artist, Dustin Goebel, a professional artist who fucks hard. He also takes commissions for artwork from HMT fans, so contact him at dgoebel, Goebel 00 on Instagram. Tell him HMT sent you.
give us a call, leave us a voicemail at 682-253-4468, and you could hear your own voice on Horror Movie Talk someday. Whee!
Dare to dream.
All right, let's get into spoilers.
The flick opens with a series of fake ads. There's the Yuletide malt beverage for the whole family, followed by a slasher where a little boy sees mommy blowing Santa, then a live concert with Santa, THC cookies called Coon Christmas Cream Pies, and finally Robo Santa Plus, which is a military robot turned into basically a Santa statue that can replace your local degenerate mall Santa, which is pretty funny.
Yeah. No, it's a good like kind of grindhouse opening with like the fake. It reminded me of Grindhouse with like the fake horror ads.
Yeah.
Did you see that in theaters? Did you see Grindhouse the double feature when it came out?
I didn't, but I wish that I had because, yeah, I mean, it would have been amazing.
Yeah,
I love both of those movies.
Yeah, that was an experience. Like, yeah, the best part was the ads, the trailers in it.
God,
which
they nailed
I guess
those
now
things. Are getting turned into feature-length films.
Yeah, so Thanksgiving is one of those, isn't it?
Yeah. Did you see the trailer when you went to go see It's a
Grindhouse?
Wonderful Knife?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, they played it at ours too, and I'll be honest, like the trailer was a little bit confusing because it plays more like a serious horror movie than a comedy, which it should be, right? Like it's very much a comedy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm interested in seeing it.
Me too.
It's Eli Roth, so it can be, I don't know. It's kind of hit or miss with him sometimes, but
yeah,
I'm interested in seeing it. We'll probably, I mean, it comes out this next week, so I'll probably see it. But yeah, it is a strong opening. It really establishes kind of the aesthetic of like, let's not take this too seriously. Like it's going to be gross
fun.
and yeah, it's all going to be in good fun.
So. Yeah, starts out in the music store, and then we have Robbie is basically trying to get into her pants. And the way that he does this is she has a Tinder date planned for the evening and doesn't really know anything about the guy that she's going to be seeing. And I guess Robbie does. So he's like instantly trying to pick apart this guy's faults and talking about how he's like married and has kids and he's a musician and how his music kind of sucks. Personally, if I was Tori and somebody was saying that kind of shit to me, I would just tell them to go fuck themselves.
Right. Yeah, and I'm never part of like a scene or aesthetic that very much has like an in-group and out-group.
Yeah.
That like they shun the aesthetics of another group and be like, he listens to Foghat. Like, fuck that guy.
So, yeah. They eventually make their way from the store to the neighboring toy store. And this is where Santa is finally introduced. But he's not, crazy Santa at first. He's just kind of like chilling in the front of the store. I think he like says a couple of lines, but really it's just Robbie and Tori having some shots and doing some lines with their scenester friends. It's not like a whole bunch of action happens in any of these places. Like they end up at the bar, they end up at the toy store. Yes, there are people there. Yes, some people are happier than others. I mean, there's definitely this theme that like plenty of people are miserable on Christmas. A big part of their conversation is kind of on like favorite Christmas songs. Are you partial to anything in particular during this like holiday season?
My wife is a huge fan of just always, mainlining Christmas music over the radio during the holiday season. For me, I think my standby favorite is what's the Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire one? It's just a Christmas song or something like that. I can't remember what the title of. It's like a really basic name, but like, yeah, it's just called The Christmas Song.
See, that's the same thing with me. Is I just like the more traditional, like, yeah.
I mean, that one's like kind of like melancholy, and like you can get different like covers of it that are interesting. I really like James Taylor's cover of it. I actually don't have very strong opinions about Christmas songs. I'm like, whatever.
How do you feel about the holiday in general?
I love Christmas. I like people to give me things. I'm a greedy person. So as I've established already on this podcast, but the commodification and the getting metric assload of commercialism shoved into your rectum for like increasingly long periods of time. Like it used to be after Thanksgiving is when it started, and then it was like maybe a week before Thanksgiving. Now it's like the instant after Halloween. It's like now it's Christmas. We've got another holiday.
The
Can't we
disease
just
of
wait?
consumerism strikes.
Yeah. So there's that. I think my favorite thing with like Christmas music is finding the oddities, and like it's not like a huge hobby of mine, but like finding just the weird Christmas songs. That was one of the reasons why I absolutely loved Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It's a good soundtrack, and they did a great job, like, replicating the sound and feel of a traditional Christmas song.
Yeah, I think I have a soft spot in my heart for the Bob Dylan "Must Be Santa." I'm definitely going to get a YouTube ding for this, but I just got to play it. It's awful and grating, and I love it.
All right, so being trained in music doesn't mean that you don't appreciate music that's not necessarily like.
No, I'm like, yeah, I'm weird with music, and I'm also like, I'm actually not that much of a listener of music. Like, even with my background, like, I don't listen to a lot of stuff, and a lot of the stuff that I do listen to, it's just kind of weird. I think we've featured Neil Cicierega on the podcast several times, and like that kind of stuff, like the mashups that are just absurd. I love that shit. I just can't get enough of the just kind of corny, just comedy aspects of it. But I mean, in terms of like my favorite stuff, like I love Radiohead. Like I'll listen to anything Radiohead, and
good stuff.
Kind of a 90s guy with my like modern taste. But
so I mean, as far as the music that they're discussing in this movie, nothing like any of that. It's Crypt Keeper's Christmas rap, which I am curious to hear now. I mean, I'm actually wearing a Tales from the Crypt shirt right now, which is Christmas themed. You're welcome. And Buster Poindexter's cover of Zat You Santa Claus.
I know that one.
Okay. And apparently there's a version where Beavis and Butthead comment on it.
Sure.
Just further proof that, these are people of a very specific ilk.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much like the first part of the movie is them shooting the shit, giving each other shit, like drinking a lot and talking about fucking, like it's very much like a lot of innuendo, a lot of like flirting, but mostly just kind of aggressively giving each other shit about, their choices and dates and whatnot. And it's all like for the goal of this guy definitely wants to fuck the main character.
Do you think she's attractive?
Yeah, I think she's attractive.
Okay.
I mean,
I don't know what you're into, looks wise.
I mean, she's a pretty girl.
I'm trying to remember now. There's a couple of actresses you've mentioned a few times who are like your dream girls.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's like, I can appreciate beautiful women, but then there's like otherworldly, and that's like Alexandra Daddario. Margot Robbie is amazing.
That's it. Yeah.
Like,
have you seen Babylon?
Yes.
It was so good. I don't know if you liked it, but I thought it was amazing.
No, I loved it. Yeah, Damien Chazelle, like, it's one of those things, like, the last couple of years have been, like, all of my absolute favorite filmmakers that are, like, young and new and are going to, like, kind of take the torch from, some of the ancient auteurs from the 80s. They all had their third film come out, and they all failed. Like,
it's crazy. It's
so
crazy.
There's like Damien Chazelle comes out with Babylon, huge chunk of money thrown at him. Like, yeah, that's the other thing. They're all like given a blank check to do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. Like, we believe in you, says Hollywood. They're given a blank check, and then all of them fail miserably, and like, oh, this is embarrassing. But all of them are fantastic movies.
Yeah,
like they're all
so
like
good.
So good. So like Damien Chazelle with Babylon is such a great movie.
And I posted about it on Terror Detective. I know it's not a horror movie, but I was like, I'm posting about this movie because it's enough of like an shocksploitation flick that it actually does fit in there, and people were like so happy about it. And either people had already seen it and they loved it, or people were like, I have never even heard of this. How have I not heard of this with this cast? And I'm like, exactly. Like,
yeah, it had some of the worst marketing of any film that I've seen in recent history. That was a huge problem. And then Robert Eggers with The Norseman. It's like one of the best movies ever, and that failed miserably. And then Ari Aster with
oh, right.
And I haven't actually seen that one, so I don't know.
It's not. I love Ari Aster's movies. I think obviously Hereditary and Midsommar are like kind of perfect movies.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say this.
Beau is Not Afraid.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Beau is Not Afraid is like perfect, but it's definitely interesting. The visuals are just like on point. The first movie you wanted us to go see was Dream Scenario, which was produced by Ari Aster and the actor who's in it, Nick Cage.
Nick Cage, yeah.
And I was just reading about it. It sounds really fucking cool.
No, it's one of those where I saw the trailer. I'm like, this is perfect.
Yeah,
like this is a perfect Nick Cage movie, and like one of those that
Hollywood like studios would never finance, but they
right. I mean,
would.
It reminds me of like the golden age of like just weird oddity movies in the late '90s, early 2000s, where it's like Being John Malkovich,
Dancer in the Dark,
Philip Kaufman, like Philip Kaufman and Spike Jonze movies, and like that kind of like where they're coming off of directing music videos on MTV.
Yeah.
And so like there's a bunch of directors that are really visually interesting, and then also just kind of off the wall high concept writers that are really good at it. Like it's been they're few and far between now, but like that Dream Scenario looks really good.
So yeah, I mean there's other stuff that I wrote down here as far as like points to hit on, which is more just specifics of the conversations they're having. There is one thing I do want to touch on before we kind of like wrap up the combo. They go back to Tori's house. They're going to finally bang. But before that happens, there is this kind of like brief bit about, I guess, original horror movies versus the sequels, which again is, I feel like, more the director just kind of like directly talking to the audience. Specifically what she talks about is, and I'm going to ask you your opinion on these, or if you've even seen them, because you may not have. I only recently saw Book of Shadows, the sequel to Blair Witch, and it is decent. It's not a bad movie. I wouldn't say it's like anywhere near as good as the original, but have you seen Book of Shadows?
I remember that being hot trash.
Oh, really?
Like,
okay.
I remember absolutely hating that movie, but also I was going into it as a huge fan of the Blair Witch Project, and it felt like a movie that had zero relationship to Blair Witch and then just got rebranded.
And that's fair. I mean, honestly, if I had seen it at the time it was released, I probably would have hated it too. And I didn't, and that's why I didn't go see it, because I had a feeling they were gonna fucking ruin it. But I don't know, seeing it like years later and kind of treating it as its own thing, it's fine. It's not terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to go back to watch it now. From what I remember, like I remember we hated it.
And that was an experience, though, seeing the first one in the theater.
Oh yeah, we talked about that at length on that episode of just like I saw the Sci-Fi Channel kind of preamble,
all the
like,
advertising,
and marketing. It was like
amazing.
Yeah, it was groundbreaking.
Yeah,
like a very important film for the genre, I think, and holds a big place in my heart. So like anyone else that like comes out and tries to do it, it's the same thing with Exorcist. It's like,
yeah,
why try to make another Exorcist movie when you have The Exorcist? It's like you're not going to do better.
Yeah.
And
have you seen the new one?
I haven't. I'm kind of. I want to see it. I'm not expecting much. We just reviewed The Exorcist 2,
right?
Which is bonkers.
It is crazy.
has one of my favorite terrible scenes, which is the scene with they're going under the hypnosis, and then the doctor's like, okay, you need to lead me down, and so all of a sudden Linda Blair is like hypnotizing the doctor, and you're like, wait a minute, has she had training in this? And then all of a sudden, like, the priest is like, I'm going in, I gotta save the doctor. And you're like, what world or what logic does this exist where everyone knows how to use this brand new technology that,
Right.
you know, is like, that was the writing and plot of that is crazy. But a lot of like interesting elements. It was an interesting watch, but
Right.
as far as like a sequel to The Exorcist, it was like, how did this happen? And then you see The Exorcist 3 and you're like, well, yeah, do that. Like
so good.
Yeah, I mean,
So honestly, I'm not going to say it's better because I'm sorry. Like the original Exorcist is the original Exorcist.
Right.
There's no way you're going to convince me that Legion is better, but it's so good. It is
Right.
so. I watched it recently after not having seen it for like a decade or maybe even longer. I hadn't seen it since I was like a kid, and I was legit like bothered and disturbed. It really got to me, and it's so visually strong. Like,
yeah.
oh my god, there's so many things to talk about with that film. It's so good.
No, and it's my favorite horror movie. Like, I will argue that it's the best horror movie ever made. It's just so great. And I watched it this last October, and yeah, again, it holds up completely. Like, it hasn't lost anything for me. It still is really, really powerful. It's really, really, like, visually interesting, and like, yeah, it's an amazing movie. So yeah, I mean,
I was talking about Legion, by the way. Sorry.
Oh, Legion?
I mean,
Sorry.
I've seen Exorcist. I feel like I see it more regularly, just because you can never really go wrong with that film.
Right.
But no, it had been like a really long time since I saw part 3.
Oh, yeah, Exorcist 3. Yeah, that one, yeah, I think I watched that last year or something, but that one, what makes it work is like they focus on the stuff that works with The Exorcist, but don't try to remake The Exorcist, which is like focus on realism, humanity, like interpersonal stories, relationships, and then have kind of a crazy slow burn mystery happening with like pure evil. And
Yeah.
it's interesting.
And it feels like pure evil. That's a hard thing to achieve when you're making a movie, like to actually make someone feel like you're watching a demonic presence.
Yeah, we talked about it on another episode that's probably come out by now, which is The Pope's Exorcist, where it's like all these exorcism movies post The Exorcist. It's like, you know what? You can't. They don't go hard enough. It doesn't feel like pure evil because you don't have like a pure innocent person feel like they're being preyed upon. There's not this imbalance of power. It's just like I don't know. I can talk about that forever, but this one features a Santa robot that kills people.
Oh my god. All right. Let's just focus on this completely. We're going to wrap this up. All right.
Right.
They finally have sex. Woohoo.
This scene, I don't know about you. This scene was very distracting for me. Like, if you're going to have a sex scene in a movie, like,
you don't want them like cutting back and forth? Is that what you mean?
So here's the thing. What they're trying to portray is this woman getting her pussy eaten by this guy. The whole time they're showing her panties still on, like on camera. And you're like, and then his head like in her thorax, you know, like whenever it cuts back, his like hair is right above her tits or like right below her tits. And it's like, I'm like, what are you?
Her thorax.
Like, and then you realize like the techniques of like, you know, kind of when you're shooting a sex scene where you're not really showing anything, you're showing someone's face moaning and you're showing like just a close up on a thigh or something. You're like, yeah, you know why they have to do that? Because if you show someone very obviously not having sex and trying to make people think that they're having sex, you're like, what?
Yeah.
Are you doing? It's like, so somehow this guy gives her cunnilingus without taking her panties off and she comes. And it's like, okay. Weird choice, but Sure. I mean, all you got to do is just like put the sheet over the guy's head. Don't show, that part.
And this is when like the killing starts, is during this sex scene, and that's kind of like a recurring. I feel like there is this kind of weird connection going on between sex and death in the movie, because I mean Santa Claus is basically trying to like penetrate her, right, with his axe or whatever, and that seems to be like one of the themes, I guess, of slashers, is this whole idea of like replacing a penis with some murder weapon.
Right. It's it's not groundbreaking stuff to have exploitative sex next to exploitative violence.
Right. Well, and also it's like the morality thing too, right? Like
right. Yeah, it's taboo. It's verboten.
It's the reason to kill them all.
Right. And everyone knows, like, secretly, we're all just wanting to either fuck or kill each other at any given moment. I mean, like, that's what we really want to be doing. So, yeah, it makes sense.
Stop looking at me like that, Bryce.
Question is which?
Very true. So, not the biggest fan of the sex scene. Fair enough. I was kind of ambivalent about it, but yeah, the killing starts. And what did you think of the actual kills?
Yeah, some of them are great. Like, when it gets to kind of the hardcore gore stuff, like, it's that great line of, like, we don't care if it looks super realistic.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to see a head stomp, you just want to see, a special effect of a head stomp and just enjoy it for, like, that's fun.
Exactly.
So, like,
yeah,
the head stomp's great. Like, the chop where it just, like, completely halves people.
There's a couple of those going on.
Yeah.
The killing starts in the toy store because her friends, he's doing her doggy style, and he gets axed down the middle. Would you still be inside like half of your body hanging off of your, I guess you would, right? I don't know why I'm thinking about the logistics of this, but yes, that was the first technical kill. Pretty good.
The other, like, hardcore one was, like, when the guy that just fucked her gets killed, which was kind of a surprising kill in the movie, because he's, like, basically the other main character.
Yeah.
And that was another, like, kind of head explosion.
Lots of head trauma.
Yeah, and this movie is definitely one of those where it's like, the moral of the story is believe women, hashtag believe women. Yeah, because everyone that she tries to warn that a killer Santa's out is like, okay, bitch, out of the way. I've got it handled, and then immediately they get murdered.
I do feel like it would be the way it would go, maybe, though. Like, when she finally gets out of her house after everyone is basically killed except for her and Robbie, and the cops show up, like, the way they treat her is just terrible from the jump. They're, like, cuffing her. But I guess that is what would happen, though, right? Like, if you're a police officer and you see some, like, strange-ass woman come up covered in blood, and there's a possibility that your partner just got, like, killed, yeah, you would probably assume that she did it, right? I mean...
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain part of it where it's like, yeah, cops would react that way.
There's a part where when the first cop shows up, he's with her in the car, and then he gets yanked out of the glass by Santa and thrown onto the ground. I guess he shoots Santa from behind, and Tori is saying, cut off his fucking head, which she's absolutely right. Like, that is what you would do if you wanted to have, like, a 100% success rate in beating Santa. But then she has an opportunity to do it herself, and she doesn't do it. And it's just kind of like, all right, well, obviously we need to, like, keep this going for a little bit longer. As we got really towards the end, there were so many, like, he's dead. He's not dead. He's dead. He's not, that I was like, just die already. Just die.
Yeah, the thing that makes it interesting at the end of the Terminator homage of, like, he eventually just turns into a robot skeleton kind of thing, where it gets more and more janky, which is just fun to watch, like, with the laser eyes and stuff.
Yeah.
So that makes it interesting. But yeah, I agree. It was between the killing of the neighbors to, like, him basically, the Santa being blown up, there's a lot of, like, oh, we're safe. No, we're not safe. Yeah. Oh, we're safe again. we got him. Nope, he's still alive. Like, there's about 5 of those where you're like, okay, we get it. But there's not a lot of notes you can play in that tune, when you have a Robo Santa movie.
Apparently, this whole thing started off with the director. He was supposed to be doing a remake of Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, I mean, in terms of, like, horror movies, The Exorcist still number 1, and, like, honestly, really top 5. Silent Night, Deadly Night holds, like, a really special place in my heart.
It's funny. Like, it hits
Yeah.
all the notes that you need a movie like that to hit.
Right, yeah.
And also, it's like a trend setter. Like, it's not the first movie to do the Killer Santa thing, but it is the first movie to do it in the way that it does it and kind of create its own genre. Have you looked at, I'm sure you've read all about it, right? Like how
it was taken out of
yeah,
theaters.
yeah. And
It
all
beat-
of that helped it to like become this cult phenomenon.
Yeah, it's definitely like a top level cult classic, but it literally was beating
Nightmare on Elm Street?
Street
Yeah.
on the first week. Like, it could have been
Huge.
a huge like genre hit, which is ironic. It's like, no, this is too bad. We can't show Santa killing children. That's going to scar children too much.
It's so weird.
But this one where it's a pedophile that haunts their dreams and can kill them whenever they sleep, that's fine. That's fine.
right.
Keep that one.
I guess it's the fact that it's taking a very specific traditional holiday symbol and
Yeah.
demonizing it, but
Right.
it's all fiction anyway. But
Yeah. And the kids shouldn't be seeing Silent Night, Deadly Night either way. I think it's mostly about the marketing where, you see a chimney with a bloody Santa hand crawling out of it. It's like, yeah, that's going to scar some children.
it was shown during like Super Bowl weekend, so tons of American households ended up seeing those
Right.
ads.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, it's a really good ad now that I'm thinking about it, with like the creepy music and the nutcrackers and oh man, it's been a while since we've gotten anything that like impactful, right?
Like, you can't compete with, like, the 80s broadcast television pre-cable. I mean, that was probably pre-cable era.
I know HBO existed, but I don't.
Yeah, not a lot of people had cable back then. So it's like, you're talking about, the 8 broadcast channels had every human eye on it in America. Cultural phenomena could happen a lot easier back then. Final recommendations. Who would like this?
I mean, obviously, anyone who likes holiday horror, right?
Right. Holiday. It's a good entry into the holiday horror genre. It's fun. It's, if you like kind of kitschy, kind of over the top, exploitative movies. Like, it's very much like you mentioned, like in the vein of Chopping Mall. It's
Yeah.
just good fun.
Like grindhouse exploitation, like intentional aesthetic. If you like 80s
Yeah.
horror movies, you'll probably like this.
Another one that it reminded me of is Mandy. Mandy's kind of a similar, very
Look-wise,
strong aesthetic and gore. Over the top violence.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I liked it. It's fun for what it is. It seems like a movie that happened because it could happen. Is it going to be like something that people are talking about for years to come? No, but whatever. You could do worse if you are just in the mood to see like a frivolous Killer Santa thing.
All right, coolio. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Thanks again to our patrons for giving us your money. Please share the podcast with a friend and leave those reviews on Apple Podcasts if you can. We need to get up in that algo, and it can only happen if you're feeling engaged, and tell people that it's good. Call 682-253-4468 to leave a voicemail, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Toodles.
Good day, sir!